Hello and welcome to the episode of the Bubbs on Sports podcast. Today is Monday, October 16th. Hope everybody has a good day so far and had a good rest of their day yesterday. Hope everybody had a good weekend. It is a football recap Monday pod here today after a big weekend in the world of sports with a ton of MLB postseason. The ALCS began yesterday. The NLCS begins tonight. More ALCS as well. A little bit here later on this afternoon, 4:37 p.m. first pitch in Houston. You had a great college football matchup over the weekend between Washington and Oregon. Washington, Michael Penix Jr. just comes away with the victory over Bo Nix and the Oregon Ducks. That was a big win for the Washington Huskies. You had Notre Dame taking down USC. And then yesterday, you had a massive New York Jets win as they knock off the undefeated Philadelphia Eagles at home. Philadelphia falls to 5-1 on the season. Both unbeatens get taken down yesterday as the Niners lose to P.J. Walker and the Browns. Jake Moody misses a game-winning field goal. They fall 19-17, and the Philadelphia Eagles fall 20-14 to your New York Jets. Massive win for the Jets. They get to 3-3 at the bye week, and you feel really good about things moving forward if you're a Jets fan today. And if you're a Giants fan today, you're waking up disappointed for many different reasons. You're frustrated about the no call in the last play of the game on Darren Waller on an untimed down. It was a clear pass interference in my opinion. I don't really think there was much debate. He was holding him from the start. But if you're a Giant fan, you can't blame that game on the refs. And I think a lot of Giants fans are I think saying that too out. You can't blame that on the refs. The Giants had a ton of chances. They had so many opportunities in the game, so many red zone chances. You go to the play before halftime where they messed up. You go to the last play of the game, obviously with and they had so many chances. The defense played great. When you hold the Bills to 14 points, you should win that game. That game should not have come down to a pass interference call or could have been pass interference call. Obviously on the last play of the game again on Darren Waller. Almost against Darren Waller. Either way, Giants come away with a loss, and they now fall to 1-5 on the season. Tyrod Taylor and the Giants aren't able to get it done. So we'll break it all down today. We'll also look back at some of the biggest games of the weekend in the NFL, and we'll get you set tonight for a big game, Chargers-Cowboys, Monday Night Football. Looking forward to that. But we'll start today with the New York Jets, because what a win it was yesterday for the New York Jets. The Jets get the job done at MetLife Stadium, 20-14 over the Philadelphia Eagles. A thrilling victory, a nerve-wracking victory, a game, if you're a Jets fan, a lot of highs. There was definitely some lows. There was definitely some frustrating moments, but in the end, it was jubilation. In the end, it was excitement. In the end, you were fired up, and in the end, it is a massive, massive Week 6 victory as the New York Jets go into the bye week 3-3 on the season. They hand the Philadelphia Eagles their first loss of the year. The Jets went into this game 6.5-point home underdogs without Sauce Gardner, without DJ Reed, without Brandon Echols. Their secondary banged up, practice squad guys all over the place yesterday in that secondary. And the New York Jets shut down a Philadelphia Eagles team with Jalen Hurts, DeAndre Swift, A.J. Brown, and Devontae Smith. Just some of the pieces that they have on the offensive side of the football. The New York Jets held the Eagles to 14 points and 0 in the last 30 minutes of that game as they shut them out in the second half. A phenomenal defensive showing by the New York Jets. An elite defensive showing by the New York Jets. And we'll start with this. If you're a Jet fan, you went into this season with all the expectations around Aaron Rodgers, all the excitement around Aaron Rodgers. How good can this team be? 12 wins, 13 wins, playoffs, Super Bowl, all those things. And when Aaron Rodgers went down 4 plays into the Monday night game against the Buffalo Bills, and he was done for the season with the torn Achilles, a couple things you would not be thinking would happen right now. Number one, I did not expect him 5 weeks removed from the surgery to be throwing a football and walking perfectly fine. I just do not expect that. And I don't know how he is. I'm not a doctor. I don't know how he's walking. I don't know how he's throwing. I'm not a doctor. I have no clue. All I can tell you is this. He's attacking this rehab. He seems to be rehabbing really well. And I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say he's going to come back because I have no clue. But by every time you see him, he's getting progressively better. We saw him get carted off on Monday night. Then he went to Kansas City, and he was pretty much walking with a little assistance from crutches. And then he went to yesterday where he was throwing a football to Sauce Gardner pregame, and it was crazy. Now, one thing I can say about the Rodgers injury is the torn Achilles was on, his left leg? It's left leg, I think it is, right? So it's not his planting leg as opposed to if it was his planting leg as a quarterback. So there could be a little bit of a quicker recovery time because it's not his planting leg that he tore his Achilles on. But it's still a torn Achilles. To see him back 5 weeks throwing already, walking around, again, not full power, but walking around without assistance from crutches is crazy to think that we're already here. And if he continues on this trajectory, he might be back at some point this year. Maybe, late in the season. Who knows? But, I mean, that's why if you're a Jet fan, you just got to keep winning these games. You got to keep yourself in contention because if Rodgers does come back, what a story that would be. Rodgers comes back, takes this team to the promised land. What a story that would be. That would be one of the craziest seasons for a franchise ever. But again, you got to take it week by week. We go into the bye week. You can't look too far ahead. There's a 3-3 team. Zach's doing just enough right now. He's playing. He's a game manager. He's playing competent. You got to give him credit. He's improving, all those good things. But the Rodgers stuff is crazy. And number 2, I don't know if I would have believed you when Aaron Rodgers went down 4 plays, if you would have told me in that moment with the gauntlet of the schedule that the New York Jets had to face after that Bills game, I don't know if I would have believed you, especially walking out, watching that New England game and seeing them fall to 1-3. I would not have believed you if you told me, hey, they're going to be 3-3. They're going to take down Denver on the road and they're going to beat Philly at home. I would have thought you were crazy because I did not think they were winning tomorrow, especially the news that we got on Saturday that Sauce Gardner was going to miss the game with a concussion. But they got the job done. And if you would have told me that the Jets would be 3-3 without Aaron Rodgers going into the bye week, I would have totally signed up for it. And here we are, 3-3 going into the bye week. Robert Saleh with one of his biggest wins, probably the biggest win as a Jet head coach that he's ever had. And the season is alive and well because the New York Jets got out of the toughest part of their schedule at 3-3. And I look at it from another point of view. The New York Giants, and this isn't a jab at the Giants, the Giants' first 6 games was really difficult. They came out of them 1-5. Now, I understand the Jets a little bit of a different situation. They're a more talented team, all those things. But the Jets came out of their 6-game gauntlet at 3-3. Giants, 1-5. Big difference. And the Jet season is alive and well. Because now your schedule starts to loosen up a little bit. And you've got some really winnable games coming out of the bye week where you can really make up some ground in what is a wide open AFC. And I really believe that this year, it's going to take you're probably going to need to win 9 games. I think you can get into the playoffs with the way the AFC is this year. I think you can get in with 9 wins. I really do. And we'll see if that happens. So, great win. Again, the timeline, you go into the game yesterday, you don't have Sauce Gardner, right? You hear that on Saturday, and you hear that it was an illness on Friday, and you're thinking to yourself, all right, if it's an illness, whether it was some sort of stomach bug, a cold, a flu, whatever it was, you say, you know what? Pump him on medicines, whatever they got to do. He didn't practice Friday. Go Saturday. Go out there, have a Michael Jordan flu game, right? He could have played through an illness, whatever it was. So I didn't really think much of it because it was an illness. I didn't think unless if it was serious or I don't know I don't know how they do the whole COVID thing anymore. If that even is in the pro, I don't even know. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I watch the games. I analyze the games. I talk about the games. I don't talk about the other stuff. That's not what I do. But anyway, I don't know. He would have probably played if it was an illness, right? If he had the sniffles, if he had a cold, he would have been out there, right? But then you hear Saturday he's out. And as a Jet fan, you're sitting there, you're like, okay, you have no DJ Reed, you have no Sauce Gardner, and you're going up against Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, arguably one of the best 1-2 punches at receiver in the NFL. And oh yeah, you've got Jalen Hurts, who was just in the Super Bowl a couple months ago, at quarterback, who can win a game with his arms and his legs. So as a Jet fan, you're sitting there thinking to yourself, man, I mean, you went from, hey, let's be competitive to just don't get embarrassed. Like, just keep this game within 2 scores. Don't get embarrassed. Don't have this turn into a 35-6 rout where you're getting embarrassed on on America's Game of the Week on Fox. All those things. Just go out there, be competent, and that was kind of the expectation without Sauce. And you've got to give this secondary and this coaching staff, specifically on the defensive side of the football, so much credit. Because what a performance for that secondary yesterday. Especially guys like Craig James, Tay Hayes, guys that came off the practice squad and stepped up in a big way. And the New York Jets, without Sauce Gardner, without DJ Reed, I don't know how many guys or how many teams out there would be able to sustain and win a game against an undefeated team without their top 2 cornerbacks. And oh yeah, let's bring up the fact too, this team's 500 without their quarterback. Right? And again, this isn't a shot at Zach, but the Jets are playing with the backup quarterback right now. I don't think there's a single team in the NFL that with all those missing pieces could still be 3-3 right now and could still knock off a Philadelphia Eagles team that was 5-0 coming in, that was just in the Super Bowl and has Super Bowl aspirations yet again. And that's a credit to this coaching staff for keeping these guys believing. It's obviously a credit, too, to the guys on the field. You heard a lot of the press conferences yesterday talking about how close this team is. This locker room's close. They're all focused on that one goal. They all, I think that's something that we've kind of known about this locker room. They're a really tight group. They're really very just, selfless group. They're not, they're selfless. They're not selfish at all. Selfish at all. They're very just motivated on that one goal, winning, playing as a team, all those great things. And again, saw that on display yesterday. But 3 interceptions from off of Jalen Hurts. Quinnen Williams, we saw a big man interception. I did not expect Quinnen Williams to have more interceptions so far this season than Sauce Gardner. I actually thought Sauce would have a big year in terms of interceptions. He's put together a very good season. But some teams just don't even throw his way because he's locking the guys down. Quinnen Williams with an interception. You had Bryce Hall tipped at the line by Jermaine Johnson. Bryce Hall picks off. And the biggest one yet was Tony Adams. Big interception to set up the 8-yard rushing touchdown for Breece Hall to take the lead, which would end up being the game as the New York Jets hold Philly on their final drive of the game with a pass breakup late by Jordan Whitehead. That was awesome. That Tony Adams interception was awesome. Jumped the route on Goddard. Beautiful play. Just what a phenomenal play by Tony Adams. He was the guy going into yesterday's game as a Jet fan. You're thinking to yourself, he's got to step up, right? With Echols out, with DJ Reed out, with Sauce Gardner out. You got Bryce Hall. They brought up Tay Hayes. They have Craig James, 2 practice squad guys. You felt like Tony Adams might be one of those guys who would have to step up in coverage if they want to put safety up over the top or you want to put him, just line him up. Obviously, they still had Michael Carter, but you were thinking as a Jet fan, you're thinking to yourself, he's going to be the guy that's going to have to step up. And he stepped up in a big way. The biggest moment in the game, he stepped up. Big interception. This defense is so good. And it's, a little bit of a slow starts, but it's weird as a Jet fan because, yesterday, I didn't feel like the defense got off to a really slow start. I really didn't because they forced 2 turnovers in the first half. And, the 2 scoring drives, again, the one was the first drive of the game. You can argue whether that was even a touchdown or not by Jalen Hurts, but they had a couple short down and distances where the Eagles converted, and you've kind of just got to give them credit. I felt like it wasn't one of those drives where they just were completely marching down the field. I thought the Jets, that first drive, I thought they were, considering all things considered with all the injuries, they almost stopped them. Like, they almost stopped them on 3rd down or 4th down. You can almost make the argument that they did, right? So even that first drive, I didn't think was terrible. It wasn't like it was some 6-play drive where they were just marching downfield. They're first down, 15-yard gain. 2nd and 8, 15-yard gain. It wasn't like they were just completely marching down the field and we couldn't stop a nosebleed. We had them a couple situations in 3rd down, couldn't obviously stop them. But again, this team in the second half is so good. And the reality is this team has shut down some of the league's best quarterbacks. They shut down Josh Allen on Monday night. They shut down Patrick Mahomes. Zach Wilson outplayed Patrick Mahomes. And then yesterday, they forced Jalen Hurts into 3 interceptions. Against Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, and Josh Allen, who you can make the argument are the top 3 quarterbacks in football. However you want to order them, that's up to you. You can make the case, though, when you look at the top 3 quarterbacks in football, it's Jalen Hurts, it's Josh Allen, and it's Patrick Mahomes. Again, however you want to order those guys, go ahead. But the bottom line is they haven't looked top 3 when they're facing the New York Jets. They've all combined for 8 interceptions combined. I think only 3 touchdowns. Gauntlet of a schedule, this team has shut down some of the league's best. And again, they did it yesterday without Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed. How many teams in the NFL could be able to do that? Not many. That's a lot of credit to this Jet team. A lot of credit. And again, this team easily could have laid down. They easily could have laid down. Built in excuses right before the bye week. Jets fans, even if you would have come out of this game with a loss, you would have been 2-4. It's still you still come back in the season, all those things. But this team stepped up in a big way when it mattered most. And again, that's a lot of reflection on coaching. You got to give this coaching staff a ton of credit. Bob Saleh, Robert Saleh, let's go. Big game for him as well. Getting to the quarterback, Bryce Huff, who we talked about going in, was 7th in the NFL in pressures. That increased yesterday. He had a 1.5 sacks during the bye week. If I'm Joe Douglas, I extend Bryce Huff. I get the job done, similar to what they did to JFM a couple years ago, where they extended him in the middle of the season. I do the same thing right now to Bryce Huff. This guy is too good to be a free agent next year. He's got to be signed and under contract. And if they do go into the offseason as a free agent, I know I'm looking way ahead, you've got to bring him back at all costs because this guy is so good. Bryce Huff is an absolute beast. They were able to get pressure on Hurts against a really good offensive line. Jermaine Johnson had a really good game. Obviously, Quinton with the interception. Quentin Jefferson had a 1/2 sack. There was a lot to like. And it's funny, the Jets never had to face the tush push. The tush push did not happen once yesterday, which is a credit to this Jet defense because we talked about going in trying to keep it 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5 plus. Don't get it into that situation where it's 3rd and 2, 3rd and 1 where they could potentially run the tush push. Because last week they ran it 6 times. Yesterday they didn't run it a single time. And that's a credit to the Jet defense. I thought on that one play, I thought there was one short 3rd and 2 or 3rd and 1. I thought they would run it, but they didn't. That's a credit to that Jet defense. Not getting them in that situation where they could run the tush push because there was a lot of talk going in, myself included, wondering how they would stop it if they were able to stop it, and they didn't run it all yesterday, which is definitely an interesting note coming out of yesterday's game. But this defense is so good. Quincy Williams is a beast. He had a fumble recovery from C.J. Mosley. The linebackers have been great. A lot to like. And again, they're forcing turnovers. And that's the one thing I think a lot of us talked about going into the season. The one knock on this defense last year was forcing turnovers, right? And this defense didn't force a ton of turnovers last year. They had a very bad turnover differential, and they didn't recover a lot of fumbles. Like, we talked about that a lot last year. The Jets, I think, last season had 13 forced fumbles. They only recovered 4 of them. This year, they're forcing fumbles. I don't know how many exactly, but they're getting interceptions. They're forcing so many more turnovers. And in big spots. Like yesterday, that was as big as the spot gets for Tony Adams to pick that ball off. And I was perfectly fine with Breece Hall, going in for that touchdown. Because I would so much take my chances with this defense, a minute 45, 2 timeouts for the Philly against this defense having to go 70 yards to score a touchdown, then 50 seconds left, field goal, no timeouts, right? And only needed to go 30 yards or so and kicking a long field goal and potentially winning it. So I was glad that the Jets went with Breece Hall. I trusted the defense in that big spot. With the way they were playing, it would have been a mess if the Eagles, would have went down and scored. Like, the Jets just couldn't let that happen, and they didn't. So, and again, the timely turnovers. We've talked about a lot last year where the Jet defense was really good, but the one issue was they didn't force turnovers. And there was a lot of times in games where late in games, those turnovers would be huge. And this year, that's happening. We're forcing turnovers big late in games. And we're stopping teams big late in games. I mean, you go back to Buffalo. That drive in overtime, they shut them down. Set up the Xavier Gipson punt return. You go into last week against Denver. Denver had a chance to win, go down and score and win it, and they forced a fumble on Russell Wilson. Yesterday, Tony Adams, right, with the pick. They've been big turnovers and big stops in big moments. Clutch from this defense. So, a lot to say. Now, when you move to the offensive side of the football, look, there is a lot of stuff that's got to be fixed when it comes offensively. Yesterday they were 1 for 4 in the red zone. They were able to finally convert with that Breece Hall touchdown. All in all, the last 2 games, they are now 1 for 9. It's got to be a lot better. I think they're 3 for the last 12, I think. Going the last 3 games, I think they're 3 for 12 overall in the red zone. They've got to be a lot better in the red zone. I would like to see more shots towards the red zone. But look, they're doing just enough, and this is the reality of the situation with the Jets offense, right? Zach Wilson is a game manager right now. He's a competent quarterback right now. He's just a game manager. Again, we have to look at Zach Wilson through the lens of a backup quarterback. And right now, he's doing a fine job. He's limiting the mistakes. He's not making the big mistake, right? And that's the big thing. I look back at yesterday's game, and I try and think, okay, if this was last year, right? If this was last year, what does Zach Wilson do? And I'm thinking to myself, if this was last year, Zach Wilson, this is probably a 2-3 interception game for Zach. Because it's probably the Jets fall down early, he tries to make a big play, and he starts pressing, and he probably makes mistakes. And he's a lot more improved. And look, if you're an NFL fan, you can look at the numbers and say, 4 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, only 1,097 yards, all those things. It's like, he's not any good. But that means you're not watching the games. You can't look at Zach Wilson and look at the box score. You have to actually watch him play. He's improved. If you watch him play, he has improved. Again, I look at the season like, you take away that Dallas game, because let's be honest here. He threw 3 interceptions in that Dallas game, but a lot of those came late when he was playing hero ball. It was, again, really good team on the road. Not making excuses, but it was like, first game out there, you kind of knew the Jets were going to lose that game against Dallas. You kind of knew, right? Outside of that 3 interception game, he's thrown 2 interceptions the rest of the season. You take away that Dallas game, he's, 2 interceptions through 5 games. That's very solid. You remove that Dallas game. That's 2 interceptions through 5 games. That's solid. There was points last year where he was throwing pretty much an interception per game. I mean, and even his rookie year too. Again, he's limiting the big mistake. And that's the biggest thing of this all, right? He was competent yesterday. He was all right. The red zone's got to be better. And that's on him, and that's also on coaching. I think some of the play calling's poor. I would like to see a lot more shots to the end zone. You've got tight ends. You've got Garrett Wilson. Utilize him in the red zone. Yesterday he had that 1 killer penalty. He did take that 1 bad sack. There is a lot of things that need to be corrected. But again, he's a backup quarterback. He just needs to be competent. Mark Sanchez calling the game yesterday. Zach Wilson has been playing similar to that level where they rely on the run, touchdown late from Breece Hall, and they rely on a dominant defense, and that's how they win games. Zach yesterday, 19 of 33, 186 yards. He got sacked 5 times. I thought the pass protection wasn't great, but all in all, I didn't think the offensive line was that bad yesterday. And an overall rating of 73.5, QBR 39.5. But again, you walk away from the game, I would still say Zach Wilson was the better quarterback out there yesterday. You want to look at the numbers and say, Jalen Hurts threw for 280 yards and he has a higher QBR. Well, Zach Wilson played mistake-free football. The Eagles turned the ball over 4 times. That was the biggest thing of it all. The Eagles turned the ball over 4 times. Jets, 0 turnovers. A lot of times you lose the turnover battle, you lose the game. You win the turnover battle a lot of times, you win the game. We've seen that a lot this year. Zach was competent. He is competent. He's much more improved. Again, if you're just a casual football fan looking at the box score, not watching the game, you don't know what you're talking about. That's just the reality of the situation. But you watch him play, he's been better. He has been better. Right? He's been competent. The Jets' recipe for success is not Zach Wilson go out there and throw for 300 yards. It's, hey, go out, be competent, complete high 50, low 60% of your passes, right? Just be competent, make some nice throws on 3rd down, spread the ball around, 180, 170, 200 yards, competent, get the run game going, and defense steps up. And that's what he did, and that's what he's been doing. And that's the Jets' recipe for success, and they're 3-3. So, you go into the bye week feeling really good. It's a lot easier to talk about, again, these things that need to be fixed when you're winning. It is. It's a lot easier to look at the film when you're winning. And the Jets right now are winning 2 straight after losing 3 in a row after that Buffalo game. So you go into the bye week feeling really good as a Jet fan. You come out of the bye week and you feel really good about the chances to make a little bit of a run here. Right, they got the Giants coming out of the bye week. That should be a win. You should beat the New York Giants. They have the Chargers and the Raiders. I think at the very least, you got to split those two games. I think you should be able to beat Vegas. I think Chargers is going to be tougher, but again, they're not very well coached, not a great defense, and it's at home on primetime. So, the Jets get that game at home. Look, if the Jets if the defensively they play like this today, and if the red zone offense can get figured out, this team can win 10 games this year easily. They easily could. I don't think, and again, I'm not trying to get too ahead of myself. It's not crazy to say the Jets can be 6-3 going into that Buffalo game. It's really not. They should be. I view those two games against the Giants and the Raiders. You got to win those games. You're the better football team in both those games. You should win. If they win those two games, that's 5 wins. You're at home on primetime against the Chargers, a team not great defensively. They are, I think, a solid team in terms of talent-wise, and they've got a lot of pieces. But again, this defense just shut down one of the better teams in football, one of the best offenses in football. They just beat the Philadelphia Eagles, right? This team could do damage defensively. So at the very least, I view where the Jets are right now. At the very least, they've got to be 5-4 going into that Bills game. And I don't think it's crazy to say they could be 6-3. Anything less than 5-4, that's a disappointment, because that means you most likely, that means you lost to one of Giants or the Raiders, which I think you just don't. I don't think you should lose to either of those teams. They should be able to dominate both the Giants and the Raiders. Even if you lose that Chargers game, you're still 5-4 going into the Buffalo. And then you have Miami. You have 2 big games back to back, but again, with this defense, and if the offense finds a groove, they could easily be 6-3 going into that Buffalo game. I don't want to say easily, because it's the NFL. Every week's hard. But they could be. It's possible to be 6-3. It is. At the very least, I look at it 5-4. Bye week, 3-3. Season is alive and well. Let's go, Jets. Now, you move on to the other team in New York, and that was the New York Giants. And look, I think a lot of Jet fans last night were Giant fans, because if the Bills would have lost last night, it made things a lot more interesting when it comes to the division and the playoffs. Because the Bills would have been 3-3, they would have been third place in the division. The Jets would actually have been ahead of the Bills in the division, because they have the tiebreaker on Monday night. They have the win against them already this year. So if you look at it, if you're a Jet fan, last night, if the Bills would have lost, it would have been perfect, because you would be 3-3 and you'd be second in division. Bills would be behind you because you beat Buffalo already this year. So again, unfortunate. You look back at the game, I would probably say that the Giants, that loss for the Giants, again, I do think that was a pass interference, but you can't blame the game on the pass interference penalty. Similar to, I go back to the Jets-Chiefs game. A lot of people still look back on the game and say, oh, the penalties killed us. Still, you can't have those penalties. You can't have those penalties, even if they're bad calls. You got to be smarter. You got to know the situation. And the Jets also started kind of slow. They started slow in that game. They fell down 17-0 early. Right? Giants, same thing here. They missed a lot of opportunities. They shut the Bills out for 3 quarters. They shut them out for 3 quarters of football. Right? 3 quarters. The Bills didn't score until, a couple seconds into the fourth. They didn't score until the fourth quarter. They didn't. And then they didn't score again until late in the fourth quarter. Down by 2, they scored another touchdown. Right? The Bills' offense last night was not good. It was brutal. It was an ugly win. A W is a W, but it was ugly on many levels. Right? And again, you take that win, that's a W. It's a W is a W, no matter what you draw it up, and that's what makes it so bad for the Giants. Your defense plays that good on the road against one of the better offenses in football, one of the better teams in football, and you can't come away with a victory. That's a brutal blow for the Giants. The play before the half, I think that's on a little bit of the coaching. I also think it's a little bit on Tyrod Taylor. I don't know why he optioned to a run there. You could also say, why are they even considering a run play there? You have, 13, 14 seconds. Take 3 shots at the end zone on the 1-yard line. Get Tyrod out of the pocket. If he sees a lane, he can run in, run a play-action boot, try and get one of your tight ends there. You have Waller, utilize him. I still don't get the lack of use for Waller in the red zone. I know they finally threw it to Waller last night in the red zone in the last play of the game. It obviously didn't work. But they've got to use Waller a lot more in the red zone. I don't know why they did that. I don't know why they ran it with Saquon. I didn't think Saquon was that good last night. He was only averaging 3.9 yards per carry. He had that one big 34-yard run, and that was it. You take away that run, and I'm not trying to take away his best run of the night, but outside of that, he was pretty bad. Part of it obviously could be the offensive line, which hasn't been good. Although I thought Justin Pugh's straight off the couch thing on the Sunday night intros for the players, I thought that was awesome. That was definitely one of the better intros I've seen in a very long time. So that was cool. But this was a game as a Giant fan that you should have came away with a victory. The Bills were handing you this game. They didn't score until the fourth quarter. Wink Martindale and that Giants defense was all over the field last night, just shutting down Buffalo. And the fact that the Bills are going to take it, or the Giants couldn't take it, it's showing how bad the offense is, and you got to win that. You got to come away with that victory. There's no excuse for that loss last night. And again, you could blame it on the refs, but you could blame that game on the refs all you want, but they had so many other chances throughout that entire game to come away with a victory. They should at least won that game by a touchdown or two, but not enough offensively yet again. And that is now 3 straight games that the Giants have not scored an offensive touchdown. The last time they scored an offensive touchdown was September 21st, which means the New York Giants, the next time they play is October 22nd. So by the time the next time they play, it'll be officially a month until the last time they scored an offensive touchdown. They obviously only scored 3 against Seattle, a field goal. The Dolphins game was field goals and in the pick 6, and last night was 3 field goals from Graham Gano. Do they score a touchdown against the Commanders? And 2, even like last night as well, why it was such a big game is if you would have won last night's game, you're 2-4 as a Giant fan. Or you're 2-4 as the Giants. Next week you have the Commanders, who are beatable, right? They're 3-3. I know they're coming off a nice win against Atlanta, but they're beatable. You get the 3-4, all of a sudden, you're like, okay, you're 3-4. Your season starts to turn around a little bit. And you start to look and say to yourself, all right, here we go. We're 3-4. We're right back into this. Right? We went from 1-4, 1-2 straight. You're feeling a lot better. Now you're 1-5, and it's just, you think to yourself, how worse can this get? And you still got Dallas again on your schedule. You've still got Philly 2 more times. You still got Philly twice, I mean. You've still got the Rams, who, I know barely came away with the, I know the Rams obviously barely came away with the victory. Well, not barely, but they were ugly in the first half yesterday. You still have the Rams later on in the season. The bottom line is, 1-5. It is such a brutal way to come back from. And let's be honest here. If this Giants offense continues to play like this, it's not crazy to say that they can lose to the Commanders next week. It's really not. This is the worst offense in football, I would say. So it's not crazy they can lose to the Commanders. You get the 1-6. You're at that point, you start thinking about the future. It's like, okay, what do we do now? Does Daniel Jones even come back? Do you risk it? Because 1-6, at that point, what is there to play for? You're not the chance of you going on some 8-2 run the rest of the way to get to 9-8 is crazy to think. It's just crazy. So, really tough spot for the Giants and a very winnable game on the road. If you would have told me that the Giants would hold the Bills to and I said that on Friday going into the game. The only way the Giants win that game is if they get some turnovers and they're dominant on defense. Well, they didn't get a ton of turnovers, but they were dominant on defense. They were phenomenal on defense last night. They shut out the Bills for 45 minutes of that game. 45 minutes. And it was only, the Bills, again, they fumbled as well. Again, as I mentioned, they turned it over. They had a turnover, 2 turnovers, and they shut out the Bills for 3 quarters. If you would have told me that would have happened, I would say the Giants win that game. But the offense was anemic again. Tough loss. So now you move on to some of the other games over the weekend. As I mentioned, Commanders over the Falcons on the road. Brutal Desmond Ridder interception to end it. Ravens over the Titans. Bengals over the Seahawks. Came down to one of the last plays of the game in the red zone for Seattle. Geno Smith got hit, pressured. No score for Seattle. So if you're a Bengals fan, you've now won 2 straight going into the bye week. And that's a big win because you come out of the bye week and you've got San Francisco, who even despite the loss yesterday, with all the injuries, they're still one of my top teams in the NFL. You're not going to go 17-0. You're going to lose that eventually at some point. Jacksonville over Indy. Not a great day for Gardner Minshew. A turnover-plagued game for him. Miami all over Carolina. Although look there for a little bit that Carolina might upset Miami at home. Which, man, if Carolina would have held on to that, and the New York Jets with the win, and if the Bills would have lost last night, the AFC East today would be pure chaos. Because the Jets would be in second at 3-3. Dolphins would be in first at 4-2. And the Bills would be in third at 3-3. It'd be a wide open division. It'd be completely wide open. Unfortunately, though, Miami was able to come back. It kind of felt like it was only a matter of time. They're so fast. They've got so much speed. It's tough. Look, I mean, you can look at Miami's schedule, and yeah, I know they lost to Buffalo, and yeah, they've obviously dealt with. And they've obviously beaten a lot of really, I guess if you want to say, bad teams. I mean, all the teams that they've beaten are all 500 or worse. I mean, took down, the Chargers, Patriots, the Giants, Broncos, and Panthers. They're all 500 worth teams. I mean, the Panthers are the only winless team left in the NFL at 0-6. For Miami, it's like, are they legit? Are they not? I mean, we'll find out. They get Philly next week, which will obviously be tough. But look, they're finding ways to win. I mean, you can look at the schedule whatever you want. However, you can look at the schedule whatever you want. At the end of the day, you play who's in front of you. You play who's in front of you. And Miami's getting the job done. I mean, it's not even like these games are close. I mean, they're dominating these games. They're dominating. When they crushed Carolina yesterday. Yeah, despite the slow start, they beat them by, 3 scores, 4 scores? 3 scores, right? Yeah, 3 scores. So, Vikings over the Bears in an ugly one. Did the Bears find their quarterback? Justin Fields went out. I don't know, though. I mean, after watching Caleb Williams on Saturday night, I don't know if anybody's going to find their quarterback here. But Tyson Bagent, 10 of 14, 83 yards. He threw a pick. Browns over the Niners on a missed field goal by Jake Moody. Texans over the Saints. Raiders over the Patriots. Patriots, 1-5 in the year. Collectively, as the AFC East, I think we can all agree, it's great to see the Patriots at the bottom of the division. Although Dolphins, Bills, and Jets fans, we might all maybe not quite like each other all the times. We're obviously all rivals. We can all agree and come together and say that, hey, New England, it's nice to see them at the bottom of the division after seeing them up there for very long. Lions over the Buccaneers. The Lions are 5-1. They are 5-1. I mean, the Lions might just mess around and go win the NFC. They really might. That's how good they've been, and they're right back in it. I mean, obviously with the 2 unbeatens in the NFC going down, they really might just play, have fun and go out there and win the NFC. They're legit. Even a game like that yesterday, the offense wasn't quite as explosive. Only 20 points. The defense steps up against Tampa on the road, and the Rams over the Cardinals. Cooper Kupp's really good. So that'll do it for the NFL. Some of the recaps there. As for the MLB postseason, Jordan Montgomery was great yesterday. 2-0 win over Houston. Another moment where you're watching that game. If you're a Yankee fan, you're saying to yourself, man, we traded away Montgomery. We got Harrison Bader in return. Bader's no longer on the team, and Montgomery is dominating the postseason. There, Bryce Harper is dominating the postseason. You're sitting there and you're making fun of Brian Cashman yet again. So it's a pathetic situation if you're a Yankee fan. Tonight, obviously, Phillies open things up with the Diamondbacks at home. College football, that Washington-Oregon game was phenomenal. Washington wins it. Missed field goal late by Oregon. Would have tied it, sent it to overtime. Washington comes away with the victory. You had, after an early scare, Georgia over Vandy. Notre Dame all over USC. A horrible game from Caleb Williams as Notre Dame got the job done by 48-20 over number 10 USC. A big win for Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame as they get back on track after a couple losses here recently. And tonight we've got the Chargers-Cowboys. So far this year on my game picks, I had another good week. I went overall in the week, I went 11-3. So that puts me at the season 63-29. If I get the win tonight, I'll be 64-29, and it'll be my third 12-win week in a row. So 11-3 this week. Looking to get to 12-3 tonight. Cowboys, Chargers in LA, in California, in Inglewood, or whatever I think SoFi is in Inglewood, I think. SoFi Stadium, Dallas, 1.5-point favorites. 3-2 coming into the game. Chargers 2-2. 8:15 Eastern, ABC, ESPN, over-under set at 50.5. Expect a high-scoring game. Chargers are given a 55.6% chance of winning, while the Cowboys are given a 44% chance of winning. I, to be honest with you, have bounced on and off from this pick really all day. I've kind of thought, earlier in the day I was like, Chargers. Then recently I was like, Cowboys. And I've kind of changed my mind a lot today. Because you can look at this one of two ways. You have a Chargers team coming off the bye week, refreshed at home, feeling good, right? 2-2. You get an opportunity against a Dallas team that just got embarrassed on national television last week, right? You can also look at it from a Cowboys perspective and use that embarrassment as motivation. You could say to yourself, all right, they're 3-2. You lost to the Niners. You've lost 2 of your last 3. The NFL fans are starting to chime in as the same old Cowboys. We've seen this before. Hot start, kind of even thing, kind of get evened out, and you're really not that good. You're overrated. And that's kind of been the notion. And I think the Cowboys are going to use that to their advantage, because after this, their schedule the next 2 weeks is a little rougher. They got LA and they got Eagles and they got Philly, right? Philly on the road too. When you look at that game those 2 games from the Cowboys' perspective, it's a tough spot, because you lose this game, you get to 3-3. I don't think you're going to come out of both those games with your win. You're probably going to split that, which would then mean you're kind of 5-5. You went from 3-0 to hovering around the 500 mark. That's a tough spot to be in. So big game here against the Chargers. As much as I do think the Chargers could definitely win this game, especially with the way the Dallas Cowboys looked last week, they were awful. I'm going to take Dallas because I didn't think they're going to be motivated. It was kind of one of those losses where the league has kind of, a lot of the media has kind of turned on them. It's like, 3-0, after that big start, they've now lost, 2 of their last 3 after starting 2-0, outscoring their opponents 70-10. They lost to Arizona, then they beat the Patriots, who stink, and then you lost to the Niners in the big moment on primetime. They fall again. All those things, which all those critiques are warranted. They were horrible on Sunday night last week, 42-10. Dak Prescott specifically, no doubt about it. But I think they're going to come out and they're going to use that a little bit of use that in motivation. Defensively, also, I still don't trust the Chargers and Brandon Staley with the coaching. I could see this being a close game, and I could just see him late making a blunder. I think this Chargers team is really talented. Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler, they're healthy. They're ready to go. Eckler's back for the first time since week 1. They're coming off the bye. I love the talent on the Chargers, but it's still up to me, the coaching. I'm going to take Dallas in this game, coming off a really tough loss, to come out and have a really big bounce-back win on the road. I'll take Dallas 27-24. Dallas covers the 1.5, gets the job done over the Chargers. And with that, I will take the over on the over-under of 50.5. Dallas over the Chargers to get the win, get to 4-2 on the season. I'll take Dallas on the road. And that'll do it for a Monday podcast of the Bubbs on Sports podcast today. I thank you all for listening. We'll have a lot more content coming out this week. We'll have a couple more shows coming out. Obviously, later on, we'll also have the Football Friday podcast later on in the week. So a lot more content coming your way. Stay tuned as always. Hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.